Live, local, late breaking. This is WDSU News this morning.
Well, a live look outside from the North Shore to the South Shore this morning as Cristobal makes its way through Louisiana. Right now, there is a flood watch in effect for parts of southeast Louisiana as we brace for more rain in the forecast. Good morning, I'm Charles Divins.
And I am Randy Russo. Later on today, Governor John Bel Edwards will meet with other state leaders to discuss the state's response to the storm as local leaders assess the damage left behind. This morning, we do bring you team coverage from Mandeville to Venetian Isles in New Orleans, which is still under a storm surge warning. But first, the latest in your forecast now with meteorologist Quaylen Murphy.
Good morning, Randy and Charles. The center of circulation is 40 miles to our north of Baton Rouge, and that's where we're looking at Cristobal. However, the impacts still spreading from areas of North Louisiana, of course, to Southeast Louisiana as well, and now pushing into portions of Mississippi near Jackson. And still, with the setup of the circulation, a lot of the impacts still spreading far away from that center. The wind's at 35 miles per hour, and so it is a depression as of this morning. It will continue north through the central United States up into the Mississippi Valley and then towards the Great Lakes. And still, even though it moves into Canada and it'll be post-tropical by Friday, still max winds at 40 miles per hour. So it will be carried by a trough that will take it to the north. Notice still the spinning motion here. There's the center, and we're looking at still rain bands coming in along our coastline. Of course, that's our concern. But then on the back edge, those heavier bands starting to push along areas around Ruston, Monroe. And so that will also create a chance for some locally heavy rain and flooding for areas to our north. Right now, heaviest rain over Boothville up into Gulfport and Biloxi. Still watching those showers, pinwheel basically around that circulation. Some lighter activity north of the lake and also just south of Belle Chase, east of Galliano. And there are some dry spots too. We mentioned that flood watch. It still goes until tomorrow morning for the additional rainfall, which could be at 2+ inches for some spots today. It just depends on where those bands streak through. We'll also see some spots that get less rainfall, maybe down to less than an inch for areas west of I-55. Storm surge warning, as Randy mentioned, from the mouth of the Mississippi River to Lake Bourne, coastal Mississippi. This is mainly associated with high tide and the onshore push of the winds. Unfortunately, an additional 3 to 5 feet possible outside of rainfall. Same goes for areas along the coast and also around Lake Pontchartrain, an additional 1 to 3 inches of water because of winds, which are consistent right now from the south and still creating a breezy, gusty setup. You can see the lookout here, and it feels tropical. We have that breezy, warm drizzle out there, muggy conditions, 80 degrees at the airport, upper 70s for Gulfport, and showers around Hammond at 75. Highs today right around 82 degrees. On top of that, river flooding going to be a concern for the North Shore even through the middle of the week. I'll have more on this when I come back. Randy and Charles, back to you.
And Quaylen, this morning, some neighbors on the North Shore could be in for a big surprise. Water creeping up, even up to homes, steadily rising overnight.
And Heath Allen is live in Mandeville this morning with how neighbors there are handling the aftermath of Cristobal. Heath, good morning.
Good morning. Look, people in this neighborhood, people in Old Mandeville have seen this before, but I guarantee you when they get up this morning, if they didn't expect it last night, they're going to get a surprise. This is Jefferson and Coffee where we're standing, basically 3 city blocks away from the lakefront that we are always down there watching the waves crash in. Well, it's solid water from Jefferson all the way back to the lakefront at this point. And if you can see all the way down to Lakeshore Drive down there, you see the huge waves still crashing in off the lake. Now, standing here at this point, the wind is still coming out of the south and the southwest, so it's literally still pushing the water this direction, which is not the good news. It holds the water in. In Old Mandeville and other areas here on the North Shore, they depend on gravity drainage into the lake. So when the lake is full, there's no place for the gravity to take that water, and so it just holds it in. Fortunately, it's not raining now, dropping more water on top of it. That's probably the good news. But this entire area, basically from Monroe Street all the way back to Lakeshore, between Girard and then all the way back to Causeway, virtually all of these streets have water on them. You get to the intersections and there's some high ground there, but basically all of these streets have water on them. They are underwater. when you get up this morning, if you live in this area, if any reason you have to drive into this area, first thing you're going to hit are barricades. The second thing you hit if you get into the neighborhood is going to be water, and you'll want to be really careful. There's drainage canals here all over the place that you can't really tell, you can't really see. You can drive off in one of those without any problem whatsoever, and you don't want to do that. So again, as one of the neighbors told us a little bit earlier this morning, this is one of those sneaky storms. If you went to bed early last night, it wasn't like this. You get up about 2 o'clock this morning, and the water's coming in. People are scrambling, getting their cars and all their possessions out of the way. So most of the houses in these areas are raised, but some aren't. Some people are going to have some problems, and the water's going to be here probably for a while. Guys, back to you.
And Heath, also out of St. Tammany Parish, happening now. The Coast Guard is looking for 2 missing boaters there. The Coast Guard says that Ted Roach and Jennifer Lingoni set sail from Salt Bayou near Slidell around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon on a yellow skiff. And when they didn't return as planned, that's when officials were called. If you know where they could be or if you've spotted that boat, give the Coast Guard a call at 504-365-2209. 6:06 now. In New Orleans East, many neighbors had their vehicles and other properties flooded out because of this storm.
Yeah, and the city called for voluntary evacuations in lower-lying areas of New Orleans East, including Venetian Isles. And WDSU's Casey Fran is there now with a look at how things are shaping up this morning. Casey, good morning to you.
Good morning, Charles and Randy. Now that the sun's coming up, we're able to give you a better look at what we're seeing as far as flooding that's remaining here in the Venetian Isles area. We are on Fort McComb Road, so this is right behind me. You can see that water. The ripples of water right there. That's about 6 inches of water. We just saw a truck come through here. A pickup truck came through with no problem. So it's not any major flooding, no major concern for people who may be waking up this morning to see this. We can tell you the water actually got much higher than this. You can see off to the right, you can see all of the debris and actual branches and things like that in the front yard of this home. That's an indication of just how high the water got here yesterday. And then I can tell you also last night, our crews were here about 10 o'clock last night, and they were not even able to make it this far into Venetian Isles. They were stopped about 2.5 miles back on Chef-Mentor Highway, where we saw a number of cars that were actually stalled out, had tried to get through the high water and were stuck there and deserted because they just couldn't make it through. A lot of those high water vehicles and emergency crews were able to get back here, but those smaller cars got stuck on the side of the road. We saw a lot of people who were parking their cars on the side of the road to make sure that they didn't get into any of this flooding. This morning, we see a lot of those cars are still remaining there. So right now, again, the flooding in this area has subsided substantially. Just a lot of this localized flooding on the streets in the neighborhoods, all of the neighborhood streets through here, we've seen that. The main road, the flooding has subsided a bit, but there is still some water covering half of the road. If you do plan on coming this way down Chef-Mentor Highway, expect to see that. And make sure you're very cautious when you're making your way through. Reporting now live in Venetian Isles, I'm Casey Ferrand, WDSU News.